You've tried everything. Every planner, every schedule, every supplement, every system. You've decluttered your home, read all the books, taken deep breaths, but somehow you're still here, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and burnt out. You might be thinking, maybe I'm just not cut out for this whole motherhood thing. And if that's you, I want to say something that might sting a little in this video, but it will also set you free. This is what helped me break free from the spiral of burnout. So today, I'm going to share my thoughts on why Christian mothers are burnt out. These are my theories, and you can test them. And then at the end, I'm going to share my thoughts on what to do when you feel like the Lord isn't answering your prayers, even when you have begged Him for help. So if you're a Christian mother who is feeling burnt out and longing to be the joyful mother and wife you've always imagined without turning to expensive therapy, supplements, or constantly decluttering your home, I would love for you to subscribe. And if you're wondering how I went from surviving each day to creating a peaceful, joyful home, even with 3 little ones at my feet, I walk through the exact process that I followed in my free workshop. So you can watch that anytime. Just click the link below. All right, so here's my thoughts on why moms are burnt out. And like I said, you can test it, but this is my theory. Burnout is often just a symptom of a deeper spiritual reality. Our thought life is being overcome by sin, not anchored in truth. I know this path well because I lived it, and I've also walked out of it, so I can see clearly through the fog that I once lived in. You don't fall into burnout overnight. You think your way there, one destructive thought at a time. Because when we don't take our thoughts captive, they take us captive. We fester in irritation, which grows into anger. Then anger becomes fear. Then fear becomes anxiety, and anxiety becomes despair. 2 Peter 2:19 says that for whatever overcomes a person, to that he's enslaved. This is the burnout spiral, and it all starts in the mind. And since sin starts in the mind, it has to pass through the mind and your will in order to come to fruition. To avoid that, we can continually renew our mind, as we're called to do as Christian mothers. Okay, so I have this story to share, and it's such a good example of this because I fall short all the time. I'm so much better, but I have fallen short more times than I care to admit. But it's this story that it's kind of funny. I'm not making light of sin, but you'll see. I hope you think it's as funny as I do. But I also hope you hear the lesson in it too. So it will forever go down as the slug story in my house, and honestly, maybe in the whole neighborhood, because I'm pretty sure everybody heard it. So it wasn't a proud moment for me. Actually, I was in sin. I was not walking in the Spirit. I was choosing sin again and again. And because of that, I was just burnt out and overstimulated. And in this moment, I was overstimulated because I was not renewing my mind. The house was in shambles, and the visual clutter was just starting to consume me. So I took a step outside for some fresh air, just trying to reset. And I was standing there, breathing it in, and all of a sudden, I heard one of my kids inside. And I was maybe out there for like 5 seconds. And I heard one of my kids inside, and I don't even know what happened, but who knows? Maybe they fell or dropped something or were just yelling. But immediately I thought, of course, now I have to go back inside and deal with this. And all I wanted was some fresh air. So I go inside, all upset, and I was still sort of freaking out inside, and everything was fine. The kids are fine. Nothing happened. I'm just like so mad. I'm so mad. Mad that I had to interrupt my one moment of peace to come in for no reason. And you know those moments when you're just so maxed out, your thoughts are spiraling, your brain feels like a jumbled mess, and you're just not in your right mind. That was me. My brain felt fuzzy. And then all of a sudden, I feel something slimy and disgusting under my foot. And I'm like in the house at this point. I'm not outside. So in that fuzzy brain state, I was like, what is this thing on my foot? And I'm yelling at this point, what is this thing on my foot? A slug? Why is there a slug on my foot? And I start cracking up, just totally losing it laughing. You can't not laugh at a slug on your foot while you're in the middle of a freak out. So anyway, I'm laughing. And then my kids start laughing because mommy's laughing. And just like that, everything was squashed. The tension broke. I felt at least 60% better, at least to the point where I wasn't losing it anymore. And I genuinely think that God placed that slug there on the front porch for a reason, to snap me out of the spiral. So now I ask you, what is your slug? What's the thing that's going to snap you out of it when you're spiraling? Snap you out of the cycle of destructive thoughts. Now, of course, you can't manufacture a slug. And why would you want to? Because it's gross. Yeah, you can't plan a random weird event like that to break the tension, but you can plant truth. You can intentionally create habits that help to interrupt the spiral. And that's exactly what I teach in my free workshop. The habits and tools I used to help interrupt the spiral and the burnout cycle is what completely changed how my home feels now. That is what did it. And I teach the exact system step by step in my free workshop. It's called From Survival Mode to Peace-Filled Homemaking in 7 Days. So if you haven't watched it, I would love for you to join me there. The link is below. One mom who is in my course, she shared how she finally broke free from this very cycle. She said, after years of struggling with guilt and frustration, this course helped me to finally break free from the cycle of feeling like I'm failing my family. I'm learning how to renew my mind daily and find peace even in the chaos. It's not about doing more, it's about thinking differently. Okay, so my first point is that moms experience burnout because they're allowing sinful thoughts to grow and replicate in their mind. But my second point, or my theory, you might say, is more freeing. So listen, my next theory to why Christian moms are burnt out is because they're allowing guilt to linger instead of repenting. Guilt without grace is just spiritual torment. So there's this secular song that I used to listen to, and it's called Cold Little Heart by Michael Kiwanuka, I think is how you say it. Honestly, it's a beautiful song. It's haunting and honest. It's about human brokenness and regret and guilt. And while it captures the ache of sin, it stops just short of hope. And that's the problem. It's a psalm with no psalmist. There's no cry for mercy, no redeemer, just endless sorrow and self-effort. Like I said, it's a beautiful song, but a dangerous one because without Jesus, guilt will just crush you. 2 Corinthians 7:10 says, worldly sorrow brings death, but godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to life. So if you're just sitting in guilt, why can't I get this right? Or my family would be better off without me, I'm the problem. Then you're trapped in the song with no savior. But there is one who gives you a new heart. Being burnt out doesn't mean you're failing. It means something deeper needs healing. Someone wrote to me recently and she said, I'm 17 years into parenting. And she goes on to say, it's snowballed into shame and total self-despise. My marriage is in shambles. No one in the church relates to me, and I'm just tired. And then someone else said, the constant fight or flight mode is especially so relevant to me. Do you think that all of this, the rage, the depression, anxiety, the overwhelm, is it my fault? Like, I know I'm so sinful and far from Jesus's perfect example, but I also know that I've been trying so hard to be the woman, wife, and mother he wants me to be. Is all of this my own doing? I get these types of emails all the time, and I know so many of you are sitting there in your own guilt and shame feeling this way. So more than anything, I want you to feel the nearness of Christ right there in your struggle. So if you're wondering this too, if your burnout is all your fault, let me answer with grace first, then truth. No, this isn't all your fault. Living in a fallen world means that we experience the crushing weight of exhaustion, mental fog, hormonal shifts, spiritual warfare, generational patterns, and burdens that we were never meant to carry alone. The fact that you're in fight or flight and that you're overwhelmed isn't a reflection of failure. It's a signal that something in your inner world is aching to be healed, rewired, and set free. And that's where the Lord delights to meet us. So here's the good news. You're not powerless here. You're not at the mercy of your emotions. And the starting place for healing is ownership. God has given us a way out of the spiral. We talked about this before. He called us to take our thoughts captive, to renew our minds daily, and to guard our hearts above all else, because that's where the springs of life flow. We can't always control our circumstances, but we can take ownership of how we respond, and that starts in the mind. The appetite of sin only grows when it's indulged, but when we starve it, when we shine the light of truth on it, it weakens, and the Lord begins to renew us from the inside out. You're not helpless in this. Jesus gives you a new heart. He doesn't just tell you to try harder. He offers transformation from the inside out. But the transformation begins with a hard look at our thoughts. What are we feeding ourselves each day? Are we making space for truth or letting sinful patterns grow louder and louder? There's a reason why people can have everything in their life go wrong and still be filled with peace. We've met those types of people, right? It's not that their life is easier. It's that they're anchored. That peace that surpasses understanding is real. but it only comes when our minds are set not on fear, but on Christ. Okay, so you're a Christian mother who's burnt out. You've prayed, you've cried, you've asked God to show you what to do, but you're still burnt out and starting to wonder, why isn't God answering? I've been there. 5 years ago, when my husband and I had to cancel our wedding due to COVID and the policies in our state, I was so mad. I was so upset at the state of Washington that I so badly wanted to get out of there. I prayed for the Lord to get us out of that state and to take us somewhere more in alignment with our values. However, my husband wasn't on board, and there was just no way we could have left at that time. So the answer to that prayer from God was a clear no, or at least not right now. So I embraced my state, and I actually fell in love with it. I loved the community that I fostered and just truly was so grateful for where I lived, my home, our property, my community, my family, and I fell in love with this season in which the Lord had told me no on something. So fast forward to present day, or rather, I guess like 3 months ago, and my husband was finally expressing interest in leaving the state. And I was in disbelief because now I was the one that didn't want to leave, but I was also open to the possibility of going somewhere more in alignment with our values. So I leaned into that, and my husband and I started applying for jobs for him to work near Idaho. All these doors just flung open, and it was wild because the Lord was clearly making a way. Okay, so by now you're probably like, okay, Kiri, but it sounds like the Lord was answering your prayers. So what does this have to do with the Lord not answering my prayers? Just wait. Okay, but then things got really confusing and messy all of a sudden, and both my husband and I started having doubts about the move. We wanted to back out so many times. We prayed and prayed for clarity, and for weeks we got nothing. No clear answers. Everything felt silent and honestly really scary. And in hindsight, I know that this was a spiritual attack because Satan is the author of confusion and the father of lies. But at the time, I didn't associate that to a spiritual attack. I just thought that the Lord was being silent on something that I really thought I needed the answers on right away. Anyway, it occurred to me, you know what? I actually don't have to shoulder this responsibility, and I can just give this to my husband and let him take our family where he thinks we belong. So that's what I did. Every decision after that, I just told my husband, hey, I trust your opinion. And I truly did trust that the Lord would guide my husband's heart wherever he wanted us to go. Within a day, my husband got a very clear answer, and he knew that moving was the right choice. He felt so at peace around that decision, and because of that, so did I. Then I remembered that 5 years ago, I had prayed for exactly what was happening now. The Lord was finally answering that prayer with a yes. And now here we are, moving this week to North Idaho. Anyway, my encouragement to you, if you're in this situation, would be to think back on whether or not this is actually an answer to a previous prayer of yours. Could it be an answer to a prayer that you prayed years ago? Maybe think about that. Sometimes we assume that if something doesn't happen quickly, the answer must be no. But often God is saying, just wait. And not because he's withholding, but because he's preparing you. And ultimately, you need to submit the decision to the Lord. So really think about if you've done that. When you surrender the decision, clarity often comes, not because you push harder, but because you release control. So think about if you've done that. And then next, this is a very practical tip, and it's something that works for me often, is to ask your husband for guidance if you can. Then trust that the Lord will give your husband the wisdom that he needs to help you. Make a conscious decision to entrust the leadership of your family to your husband and ultimately to the Lord for working through him. So if you feel like you're stuck in burnout, it's not too late. You don't need another hack or tip. You need a new mind, a new heart, and Jesus gives you both. And if you're looking for an exact system and tools and the ones that I use to calm my nervous system and rewire my brain, I walk through the exact steps that I followed in my free workshop. So you can click the link below for that. And it's always such a joy to have you here. And if you're interested in the overlooked habit that brought joy back into our home in 1 week, watch this next video.